Chapter 9 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Two things might here be attempted. On the one hand, to trace farther the bearing of these thoughts upon our customary views, and on the other, to show how they might influence our life. But it seems better to leave them now untouched. These few pages have been written rather for some than for all, for those whom a special discipline may have prepared to welcome them. And to these I commit the thought, painfully conscious of my inability to say it as it should be said, an inability which those to whom I have written will at once feel most deeply and most willingly forgive. To them I may say, for they whose tongues have often faltered and have been dumb from very eagerness of passion, and dread lest any words, even the best, should spoil their story, will understand me, that great desire and fear have hindered me. These words I have stammered through. Let them read, in their feebleness, reverence, a tribute to the sacredness of grief, made more sacred by the glory of its consolation. I do not seek to show whether, or in what way, other thoughts, natural and perhaps established thoughts, may need to be modified in order not to conflict with these. There would probably be much less demand for the change than might be supposed by those to whom the preceding thoughts may seem new. It may, however, serve to guard against mistake if I say that of course no meritorious character is ascribed to human sufferings. Man's redemption is accomplished in them, not in any way by virtue of them. The restoration of humanity is carried out in experience, not wrought by us. I need scarcely say that, because in these pages man's condition has been compared to that of disease. It is not supposed to be that other aspects of his state are not recognized, especially his sinfulness, or that Christ's work in relation to his sin lightly valued. But there has been less reason for reference to these things, because I have left untouched the question of sin, and designedly limited myself to a smaller problem. Hereafter light may perhaps be thrown even upon the profoundest of all mysteries, man's revolt from God, and deliberate choice of evil. I may perhaps be pardoned for thinking that to understand pain aright may tend to lessen, rather than to aggravate, the difficulty of the greater mystery of sin. It may seem to some that the more mention should be made of pains that arise from sympathy, and so have their source in love. Let me say that, as these are among the acutest of human sufferings, an emphatic reference has been made to them in that which has preceded. Love can transform them, though it gives them birth. While any loved ones sorrow and are in distress, sympathy with them must be sorrowful too. But if all sacrifice is made joyful, then sympathy with others' sacrifice will be sympathy with their joy. These sorrows also man's perfect life will turn into rejoicing. In so far as these thoughts respecting pain depend on a recognition of unseen ends served by it, it seems to me that the recent tendency of the human mind is wonderfully, and surely most happily, in harmony with them. What better could the students of nature and the students of humanity agree in telling us than this, their great lesson in these modern days, that the true essence and meaning of all things is hidden from our natural sight? What is this but to echo back words we have so familiarly heard from childhood upward, until they have perhaps partly lost their force, which bids us live as seeing the invisible, and walk not by sight but by faith? If this is the last lesson of science, it is also the first lesson of religion, perhaps now better to be learnt than ever before, and better understood, because reiterated from this new region, and enforced by this new evidence. To understand or feel our life aright, we must regard something not visible to ourselves. We must, in fact, be using faith. This science tells us, this philosophy. Shall they tell it to us in vain? To those who need so deeply to believe and to act upon it, whose whole life is shrouded in darkness if it is not true, and may be, nay, must be, radiant and unutterable glory and delight if it be true? Shall we refuse God's gifts because they come to us from unexpected quarters? Shall we refuse to listen to this confirmation of the gladdest message because it is given in unfamiliar tones? And in respect to the practical bearing of these thoughts respecting pain, I refrain from speaking, partly because I feel incompetent, but more because I feel that it is not necessary. That they must have practical influence where they are truly felt, surely is evident. What influence they should have, perhaps, is better left to each person's heart than stated in another's words. If the thought can sink and take root in the soul, it will bear fruit, better fruit spontaneously than if conformed to any pattern. Nor, indeed, are circumstances so much alike in different cases that external actions can be conformed to special rules. This seems enough. A beautiful external life is the fruit of life within, especially of that life which dwells in joy. If joy could be brought to sorrow-stricken hearts, their path would blossom with good deeds. The gladness within would overflow in acts of heroism and devotion not uncalled for even yet. And does not joy grow out of sorrow when we see it thus, an infinite and tender joy passing all other? Do we not feel the very throbbings of God's heart, and even this sad world beautiful and good beyond conception, beyond hope, the poor, the miserable, the blighted and shipwrecked lives, clothed with a sublimity grand, and yet exquisitely tender, that pales before it the best joys of the earth, fair and blessed though they may be? It is good to be blessed with health, and strength, and family, and friends, and prospects, and success, in capacity, and power, and scope for fullness, in love returned, and growing with its return, giving and receiving more with each year, in deeds of wide beneficence, which enrich the lives of nations. It is good to be blessed so, but not so good as to be sacrificed, poor and wretched, halt and maimed and bruised, heartbroken, spiritless, incapable, lost utterly, so sacrificed for man's redemption. That is to be like Christ. It is to hear him say, "Thou drinkest of my cup, with my baptism art baptized. I will make thee one with me, the destined sharer of my joy." It is not too much, no, not too much, but it is more than can be given, save in utterest abasement. The head on which bliss is poured must be bowed into the dust. We cry in our agony, in weakness, failure, perplexity of heart, that there is no hope nor help. No hand seems to direct the storm, no pity listens. God has forsaken us, we say. Do we say so and not recall the words which fell in the great victory on Calvary, fell from the conqueror's lips? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Blackness of darkness and despair, and sorrow blotting out God's hand, and feebleness sinking without a stay, these are not failure. In these characters was written first the character of our deliverance. These are the characters in which it is renewed. End of Chapter 9 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey. End of The Mystery of Pain by James Hinton.